This is going to be a Colosseum guide directed more towards people struggling to maybe get their first quiver or have certain questions on various stacks or spawns. And just like the title says, most importantly for pures or restricted accounts. The only part of this video that's going to be directly tailored towards pures is going to be the gear section. Everything else is pretty much helpful for any other type of account. After watching a whole bunch of guides on YouTube, I saw that most of them just taught you to tank and change pillars. You can't do that as a pure, nor should you really do it as a main when you're learning, but teach their own. I'm really making this video to help people just get their first quiver. There's a lot of stuff in here that's going to help you get your first quiver. It's not going to essentially be like a beginner's guide. I'm not just going to go over every NPC possible. I'm just really going to focus on the things that you're going to need to know to get your quiver. And if the majority of the guide sounds like I'm whispering or a monotone, that's because I literally am whispering. The only time I have to record this is when my son's asleep. So the first thing we're going to talk about is going to be the wonderful RuneLite plugins. I'm not going to go over every plugin that I use on RuneLite, really just going to highlight two of them. First one is going to be the Fortis Colosseum plugin. You are really going to want this plugin primarily for the wave time splits. This is going to help you significantly with the reinforcement spawns. The next plugin I wanted to show was the Better NPC Highlight. A lot of people use this around the game. This is very important in the Colosseum, so you're able to line up the stacks behind the pillar and basically see exactly where those NPCs are going. The next part of this video is going to talk about the modifiers. So the modifiers will make or break your run, guaranteed. It's very important that you choose these well. There are a lot of modifiers you can choose from. There are a handful that you should not take when doing your first quiver, and these are the ones we're going to start with first, the ones not to take. Now, remember, if you're watching this video and you're a main account or you're an experienced Colosseum runner, you may disagree with some of these, but keep in mind this is more tailored towards a pure as well in this video, so there's a reason behind all of these. So we're going to start with bees. So bees 1, 2, and 3, just act like they don't exist, don't even take them. Next is going to be Doom 3, which eventually becomes free once you start getting better at the Colosseum, but once you're learning, I would not take Doom 3. Doom 1 and 2 are okay to take. I just would not take 3. The next one is going to be Dynamic Duo, and this one is going to be just a straight up RNG fest, and you can really just ruin a run, especially on wave 11. I just really would not take this. So Frailty is a tricky one because Frailty 1 and 2 are pretty free, especially if you're maxed 99 hit points. Once you get to Frailty 3, you have 60 hit points for the round, which is fine. However, if you're on Soul, you can almost get one hit, and that's why I'm saying to try to avoid Frailty 3. I really wanted to throw Volatility 1 and 2 on here just because they really just mess up the Fremennik runs. But 3 in particular, I just would 100% avoid it. You are not going to do it well. Just avoid it. The only time I would ever take re-entry at all, 1, 2, or 3, is if I'm on wave 11, and then I might get lucky with one of the Rangers stuck behind the northeast pillar. Since I'm going to be teaching northwest pillar spawn, don't take red flag. It'll ruin everything. Manti Mayhem 1 and 2 are absolutely free and absolutely recommended. However, I wouldn't take them too early because then you'll get the option to get Manti 3, and this can throw off a lot of off ticks, a lot of spawns, a lot of stacks. I just would avoid this. So Solar Flare is actually a pretty tricky one. I don't recommend taking it at all. However, a lot of people that do teach Colosseum, all these guides say it's free, say to take it, which I understand. I just personally don't like it. It really adds another dimension of movement, which I'm just not a fan of. 1 and 2 are okay. However, I would just avoid 3, especially going into the boss, which can smite you, and it's just not fun. So the last two are going to be Quartet and Totemic. So both of these are 100% just avoid these at all costs. However, if you do need to take these, it should be on Soul, and that's it. Quartet just ruins the Fremenniks big time. And especially if you're a pure, you're going to take so much damage with Quartet, especially if you get 2 melee Fremenniks. It's just going to throw everything off. Totemic during the waves is just horrible. During Soul, it's really not too bad. I would really just try to avoid it as much as you can for your first quiver. Okay, so this part of the guide is just going to be the pure gear. If you're not a pure, feel free to skip over this. That's perfectly fine. If you have your own gear that you're using and you're comfortable with, that's also fine. I'm just going to show you everything that I use for speed runs, max gear, and then what I used when I was learning. So the first picture is going to be the max gear. I use max range. I also have max melee, which is going to be my cape, manacles, ultra ring, Scythe, and Blood Fury. So the Blood Fury is super important for the waves. Uh, as you see, I don't bring a lot of food, nor do I really touch brews the entire run now. Blood Fury just heals up every single wave. It's awesome. And I partner that up with an SGS. So I SGS every single range Fremennik at the start of the wave, which I'll show after this. Partner that up with Death Charge, which is in the rune pouch. I have a SGS spec for at least every single wave. So there's really no need for a lot of food, especially once you learn the stacks and how to solve them properly. And of course, this is saying that you are utilizing the Blood Fury, Death Charge, and the SGS for every wave. If you're not getting use out of those that you're supposed to, you're going to need food. The next thing you're going to see in my inventory is going to be the Shadow, the Occult, the Tormented Bracelet, and the Imbued Heart. So all four of those are required in order to one hit the melee Fremennik. So the next section is going to be on Fremenniks, but I do want to go over this real quick. Even if you have the Shadow, Occult, and Tormented bracelets, if you are not Imbued Heart, you are not one hitting the Fremennik. And so that's very important to make sure that you're utilizing your Imbued Heart properly and not brewing so much down where you have to sit there and wait 5 minutes to get your imbued heart back up. Next is going to be the Venator bow, which isn't 100% needed. However, it does help, especially if you don't have a T-bow, because you'll be able to one-hit the Mage Fremennik, which again we'll go over in a little bit. And then last but not least, I bring the Elder Maul. If you can't afford an Elder Maul, then you can bring a Dragon Warhammer. That's perfectly fine. So I'm not dumb. I understand that if you're watching this video, you probably need help with the Colosseum. You're probably having difficulty with the waves, and you probably need more than 2 brews. I completely understand. So I just want to show this picture here. So this is going to be an 80 attack setup with no shadow. So what this is going to do is this is going to open up 3 extra inventory slots because you don't have to bring the occult, you don't have to bring the tormented bracelet, you don't have to bring the imbued heart. You are able to now 2-shot the melee Fremennik, which again, I'll explain in a little bit, which is fine. You just may take a hit or two depending on how well you do the Fremenniks. Now, I'm not going to take too much time on these next 2 pictures, but I'm going to show what I would bring for a max 60 attack and then a max 50 attack account. Everything is pretty much the same, pretty self-explanatory if you watched the previous part. Um, the only difference with the 60 attack is obviously I bring a Colossal Blade and a Dragon Warhammer instead of a Scythe and an Elder Maul. And then I bring the Dragon Claws to then 2-hit the Ranger Fremennik. And this is with me just claw scratching, not using a spec. You can do that, or you can bring just a DDS, which is a very fine alternative. But if you do that, you do need to use the DDS spec. So this is what I would bring for a 50 attack setup. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do want to highlight some of the differences between the 80 and 60 and 50 attack setups. So for this, I would bring a light bearer. I would just camp it the entire time. And the reason being is because I would bring an Eldritch staff and I would spec the melee Fremennik every wave. Now, 75% spec, I believe it is hard to get for every wave. So the light bearer is very crucial with that. And death charge is obviously very crucial as well. And just to highlight one more thing of why I bring the light bearer, during Soul, you are going to want as many specs as possible with the Dragon Warhammer to ensure that you get that defense as low as possible. And then obviously for every parry attack that he throws at you, you are guaranteed a max hit, which I'm sure you probably know. And your Dragon Warhammer is going to be the best thing for that. Now we're going to get into what I consider being probably the most important part of the Colosseum, especially if you're a pure. If you do not do the Fremenniks properly, you will take so much damage, and you will lose so many prayer points, leading to just a loss of supplies. So really take your time learning these and do these properly, and I promise your run will go so much better. So this first clip is going to show how I deal with the Fremenniks with just one NPC South, and I'm going to show it in real time, so you're able to see exactly how I do it. So we're going to run that back in slow motion, and I'm going to explain every single thing I do. Number one, I'm divine combated, I'm divine range, and I already used my imbued heart. As soon as my character gets to the A tile, I'm turning my run off, and I'm going to right click the Berserker and get ready to click him as soon as he crosses the threshold of that pillar. Once that hit registers, I'm going to click towards the wall and switch to my range gear into my Veni bow. Once my character gets relatively close to the wall, I'd say about a tile or two away, I'm going to right click and click the seer. Once that hit registers, I'm clicking back towards the pillars, switching into my melee gear. I'm getting ready to SGS spec the ranger. This section is going to show how to deal with the Fremenniks properly and damageless with one single mana core south. And again, I'm going to show it in real time and then slow it down and explain what I'm doing. So it obviously looks very similar to just one NPC South, whether it be a ranger or a major. However, there is a slight difference, and this kind of messes some people up. So number one, I'm going to start by hitting the melee, of course, running to the wall, just like I did before. Now, as soon as my Veni bow registers on that major, I'm going to need to get ready to switch my prayers, which I do here. Now I have a very short time to kill this ranger, and then as soon as I kill this ranger, I'm going to need to do my prayers again. This is going to show how you deal with an NPC South with the possibility of a mage reinforcement coming in. So this can happen on a couple different waves, waves 4, 5, 6, 10, and 11. The order in which the reinforcements come out is random. However, it's very important that you learn what to do when the mage comes down first. The main takeaway from this section is to watch the ranger south. Since he hits every 5 ticks, I need to make sure that he can see me every 5 ticks. So I cannot hide behind the pillar for too long, otherwise he falls out of cycle, and it ruins this method. So at 40 seconds, when the mage reinforcement comes down, I'm going to step on this tile right next to the pillar, and then it's just a simple range to mage switch. Range starting Manticore South with the possibility of a mage reinforcement. Same thing as last time, we want to make sure that that Manticore South sees me the entire time that he's able to hit me. The only time I want to hide behind the pillar on the A or B tile is when he is charging up. If he's getting ready to hit me, I need to be out in the open on this C tile, where the C tile would be, for him to hit me. Now, once that mage reinforcement comes down, all I need to do is pray the Manticore, and after I'm done praying the Manticore, I finish with mage. So shown again, I pray the Manticore, the 3 hits, and then I finish with mage. Mage starting Manti South with a mage reinforcement. Again, same thing with the Manticore South. I want to make sure that he sees me the entire time that he's able to. And after he hits me, when he's charging, then I can drag him in with the A tile. Now this is very similar to the range starting Manticore South. The only difference is I'm going to step on this tile, tile A, and then pray the Manticore. This is going to be the first double spawn south that I'm going to go over, and this is with a Mage Manticore and a Mage South. So they're automatically the same ticked, obviously. However, in this clip, I do go north just to show one method of doing this. So one thing to note here is that even though I notice that there's a double spawn south, I'm still at least killing one Fremennik. Now I notice I only have a single ranger north, so I decided to switch north. And I took a hit here because I'm garbage. I finish up, I stand on the edge of the pillar, and then I'm able to cycle back to the west side. And now both of these are same tick. And me doing that saved me from having to do all 3 Fremenniks on one side with 2 NPCs. Double spawn south with an off-tick Manticore in the back. So this is what kills people the most, I think, because they're unsure how to set up the off-tick while dealing with the Fremenniks. So I'm going to show another method that I use, and basically all it is just cycling north and then cycling back west. So I'm going to show this in real time first and then slow it down because there is actually a lot to explain here of everything that I'm doing. So right off the bat, I'm going to identify which prayer I need to do south, which is mage here. I want to make sure that I'm at least killing one Fremennik. And as soon as I notice that that Manticore started with range, I'm going to cycle north, pray whatever's on the north side, deal with the Fremenniks here. Then I'm going to stand next to the pillar on one of these 2 tiles, the middle one, or the one closest east. And I'm going to swing back west here, clicking on that tile. I'm going to start by praying the back NPC first, and then simply praying the Manticore. And after I'm done praying the Manticore, I'm going to pray whatever the front NPC is, which in this case is a mage. So this is going to be the hardest spawn in my opinion, and that is a Mage Manticore with a Ranger on both sides of the pillar. So this can only happen on wave 10, and this is hands down the hardest wave 10 spawn you can get. It's very similar to the previous clip I just played. However, you do need to do this one a lot faster because you only have a certain amount of time until that Manticore on the north side can hit you. Again, I'm going to show this in real time first and then slow it down so you're seeing exactly what I'm doing. So again, I'm praying whatever NPC is south, which is a ranger here. I'm killing as many Fremenniks as possible until I realize what that mana core is, and it starts with Mage. So I'm going to cycle north here, still praying range, kill the last Fremennik, and immediately get ready to go back to the west side. And again, starting to pray the back NPC, which is the Manticore, and it'll line up perfectly with the Ranger that's in the front. This is how to set up the corner trap, or the L trap, whatever you want to call it. This is when you have two NPCs behind the pillar, and you only want to attack one of them. So I'm going to start on this tile, and then swing all the way over to this tile. And this allows me to hit the back NPC only, with the front one not being able to hit me. Now, as soon as this back NPC dies, I'm going to have to step off this tile, which then allows that front NPC to drag over to hit me. Now, if you have a ranger in the back of a corner trap with a manticore in the front, after its 5 hits that it throws, you're going to have to run back to the A tile and pray the manticore. Now, this might seem like a little bit extra. However, this allows you to not have to perform an off tick. So once the back NPC dies, when I step off, then I pray the manticore. Destacking is a method of changing the stack behind the pillar when there are 3 NPCs. So in this particular example, it is going to be range, range, manticore. That's unexposed. So I'm not going to need to flick anything because when I step out, the first 2 NPCs will see me first, and then the manticore will see me. However, it won't hit me because it's not charged yet. So I'm going to pray range here, go back to my destack tile, click outside of the pillar on the other destack tile, and then click back. Now that mana core slides around south, and I'm able to go north here to just pray range, or I could have stayed west and prayed the mana core. Now, you're not always going to get lucky with the destacking with no flicking, so this is an example where flicking is necessary. So right away I noticed that I have 3 NPCs behind the pillar, so I'm going to need a destack. There's a major in the front, an unexposed mana core in the middle, and a ranger in the back. So I pray mage first, and then flick to range because he's going to see me next. I'm going back on this side of the pillar, and now I'm allowing this ranger to slide down. And now after I handle the ranger, now I have a range manticore in the back and a major up front, which I could do an off tick, or I can just do the corner trap. Now, obviously, there's going to be examples where you absolutely need to pillar change, especially as a pure. So this is one example of when I had to pillar change. So there are 2 NPCs in the front, and then 2 stacked on each other in the back. So right now, my move here is to go to the southeast pillar. So I'm going to set up the off tick by standing 3 tiles away in the middle, praying mage, and then switching to range here because the mana core is not going to see me. However, I do need to be very quick because that mana core will hit you if you do not get to this tile as quick as possible. So now that major is going to slide down, and that is going to be the only thing that can attack me. And once I finish that major, then I can kill those rangers on the west side. So I saved this solve for last because I truly believe that this is going to help the most people. So this is called the Northeast Minion tile. And so essentially what you're going to do is you're going to identify that there is one NPC behind the northeast pillar. So in this clip, you'll see I deal with the Minotaur and the Mage reinforcement first. And I notice that I have 3 NPCs behind the pillar and 1 behind the northeast pillar. It's important to note that you can do this with 2 NPCs behind the pillar as well. So I'm going to pray range here and slide over to the southwest pillar. And I'm going to click on this tile, the northeast minion tile. And doing this, the only NPC that can attack me now is the one Manticore south. The 2 rangers will get trapped behind the Manticore, allowing me just to attack one Manticore. Now once this Manticore dies, now I can deal with these 2 NPCs, which just so happen to be range, but if they weren't the same, then I could have slid to the west side and dealt with the Manticore. But I'm going to go ahead and deal with this one ranger. And then go ahead and kill the second ranger. And then finish off with the Manticore. So I just took a triple stack with one NPC behind the pillar and made each one of the fights a one-on-one. And now to my favorite part of this guide, which is going to be talking about Soul Heredit. So Soul Heredit is not as hard as a boss as everyone makes it out to be. It can be done damageless, and it can be done damageless for an hour. Honestly, I've seen a video of a guy punching it to death. So there are some things that you need to learn how to do, and I would highly recommend using this Soul Heredit trainer online. It is very accurate to the real boss. It may not be 100% just like the game, but it is going to get you in the motion of the cycle and get the timing down for when you can attack the boss. So again, this is not a beginner's guide. It's more of a guide to help people maybe finish their quiver. So I'm not going to go over everything, but I do want to highlight some tips that I have to help you succeed at Soul Heredit. Starting with game sounds. Game sounds are very important to put on, especially because you're able to hear which part of the cycle you're in before the attack happens. It also allows you to be able to hear which special is happening before it happens. So I would highly recommend putting your game sounds on. Do not panic. When you get hit, which you're going to, don't panic. I know it's easier said than done, but just don't panic, stay in cycle, and you'll be okay. Something that helped me when I was learning was saying the cycle out loud, like shield 1, shield 2, J1, J2. You can say it out loud, you can say it in your head, whatever helps you. So this may seem pretty obvious, but maintaining high hit points and prayer is very important. So maintaining high hit points is an obvious one. If you're a pure, you are going to need to maintain high prayer. So you already don't have high prayer, and I assume you're probably taking Blasphemy 3. So if you get hit once, maybe twice from soul, you're going to get smited. So I would make sure that you're maintaining high hit points and prayer. Focus on when to rotate. Essentially, you want to make sure that when you're close against that wall, that you are planning your rotation to the next side of soul. And lastly, change your F key settings for your equipment tab to make it easier for you in the middle of the fight. This is going to be crucial for you, not only to not take damage, but once you get that timing down, those free max hits are crucial for the fight. So this is going to be a clip of me killing Soul. Again, this is not a beginner's guide, so it's not going to go over every single mechanic that Soul has to offer, but it's really going to go over the things that I think people are going to get the most use out of learning. So right off the bat, I dump both my Elder Maul specs, or if you have a Dragon Warhammer, both of my Dragon Warhammer specs. And then you'll also notice that I am right-clicking Soul. So this is going to avoid me misclicking and clicking underneath, and then getting completely out of cycle and ruining my run. So here I get the text above his head for yellow pools, so I'm clicking one tile behind me, and then getting ready to click 2 tiles, which I didn't need to then. And I'm going to sit here and wait for Soul to come to me, and then right-click as soon as he mates me. Now, for the overhead melee prayers, the only piece of advice I could give you is to watch someone do it in real time and practice the prayers on your own in-game. So, for the parry attack, I hope that you did change your F keys to something easy to get to. And really, the only piece of advice I can give you for this is to only look at the last word of the text above his head. So this is an example of the first rotation I do, which was actually a completely unnecessary rotation. However, now it leads me to have to do a real rotation. So now I am 2 tiles away from the wall. So the next attack is going to be shield 1. So then it would be shield 2, which I can't do. So I need to rotate to the next side of Soul. And now it was shield 2, so I'm safe to do shield 2. So that video highlighted basically everything that I think people need to understand when they're learning. Uh, I understand some of my methods may not be as orthodox as other people do in the Colosseum, but you also have to keep in mind that being on a pure, we have to avoid all damage at all costs. So it is very important that we at least learn some of these methods. So if you have any questions, I'm going to link our Discord down below. It's Pure Crew. Our in-game CC name is Pures, and my in-game name is Zastrian. If you have any questions, feel free to join. Hit me up. Be more than happy to answer any questions you guys have. And don't forget to subscribe.